So when we talk about federal contracting, all it is that's how the government buys their goods and services. So that's their purchasing plan. That's their highway, and that's what federal contracting is. It's entities' ability to negotiate and engage in agreement with the government to provide either a good or service, and that is it. Bottom line.
Because practically the government is just another client.
Yes. Absolutely.
Okay. And so now as far as some of the different policy shifts that's been going on, because there's a lot of people, including myself, going into government contract, just it's a lot of murky waters. Like it's just really hard to sort of navigate that. Does it still matter to small business today? Why? And how should small businesses think about government contracting today with all the executive order changes and everything that's going on?
So, with all the executive order changes that going on, and as to whether or not government contracting matter to small businesses, I would say absolutely. It still matters to small businesses even today. Do we have to be more strategic in our approach in interacting with federal government? Yes, we do. It's just plain and simple. So when we talk about the policy changes, being mindful that the policy that we most often refer to or that serves as the Bible for federal contracting is the Federal Acquisition Regulation. The Federal Acquisition Regulation is referred to as the FAR, and what it does, it implements other statutory acts, policies, or any other kind of regulatory body. It's an implementation of that. Now, when we talk about the changes, what has changed and what did change is under the Biden administration, they had increased the small disadvantaged business goals up to 15%.
Mhm.
And so companies like 8As or those disadvantaged businesses, that goal had been increased to 15%. Now, what has happened under the current administration, we in essence just went back to the statutory floor. So for small businesses, it's 23% of those contract dollars from those eligible contract dollars. And then, of course, there's those specific goals and women-owned small business, 8As, hub zones, or veteran-owned small businesses. Each one has respective goals, but overall, in the event that the government don't make an individual goal, as long as we're doing 23% in all small businesses goals, we're otherwise meeting the actually, yeah, you're meeting the statutory intent of those goals. Now, for the past two fiscal years, FY23 and FY24, the government has exceeded the goals and greater than 28%. And so it even went up a little bit this past fiscal year from the previous fiscal year. So they're meeting the goals of the overall overarching policy. Now, when
Mm,
it gets to those small, the respective categories, the goals may not always be met, but for the most part, the goals are otherwise being met. So now, when we ask, okay, does it still matter for small businesses to compete?
mhm.
I would say yes, because at the end of the day, if nothing else happened, as a small business, as long as you are a small business, anything that's set aside, for small businesses, you have an opportunity to submit a proposal. Are there likely going to be reduced efforts or reduced announcements and opportunities in the special categories like 8A and woman owned? Potentially, yes, that's highly probable. But it's very important that people stay connected to what is actually finally being written down as policy in the four corners of a document that's put out to us for view because, typically in the contracting world, if I had a requirement previously for a follow-on award, I would keep it in that program.
Okay.
So, and the same thing if it was a woman owned or veteran owned, you would try to give fair opportunity in that same social economic category. So, what is occurring now is potentially based on how the policy ferret out. What will they still do that? Because, they're shifting requirements to GSA. They are bundling or consolidating requirements, whichever terminology they decide to use right there. So that's going to bring about some change. Just position yourself as a small business. It'll be more people competing in that pot. If you want to play the game, that's what you're going to have to do.
What strategies can you track and the changes they or interpret some of this changes that's going to be coming up or that's already going in effect? How do people start planning to adapt to this policy changes or the updates? Because a lot of it is still up in air. It's not finalized in some cases. So how do people start planning and knowing this is the strategy I need to put in mind to be able to effectively adapt or effectively interpret this entire policy change?
Well, I would always support an agile strategy for anyone, and that should be everyone's original intent starting out,
Mm,
right? But as it relates to the policy changes, so and then being mindful of how they're playing the rules and how they're leveraging the regulation for what it says for
mm,
their convenience. So when we look at what is happening from a FAR perspective, go to acquisition.gov, look at the FAR overhaul, and see what FAR's regulation, what parts of the FAR have already been changed. Because what
mm,
they're doing is they're doing the deviation aspects of it when they're doing the line through with the expectation that the agencies are going to subsequently also put in their process and their procedures. And so it's like doing things a little bit backwards, but it's a way that they can do it. But just always go to the sources. All of the changes to the federal acquisition regulation are being posted on the acquisition.gov, and there's a tab that specifically say FAR or overhaul or FAR 2.0 overhaul, whichever wherever they're titling, and it will show you all of the regulations that have already been changed. Once you open up that particular regulation, it will also list the federal agencies. Some federal agencies will have policies that they've already put in place. Some will give you announcement as to what is to be expected or where they're at in that phase. But the information is readily available there. Continue to track the what is happening with whitehouse.gov. Continue to track, there are various organizations that actually keep a running tab on all of the policy, like G2X. I think it's G2X.com. They have this spreadsheet and they just capture all the changes is capturing it so that people can keep track of it. The SBA, the respective organization that you're typically doing business with, always check those sources and those entities. Check with your APEX centers to see, or any kind of veteran service organization. Hey, what do you are you tracking any policies? Just staying alert in that way, in that capacity. And it's very important that people get into the habit of doing that, because you've got to start reading what is being changed or what the rules of engagement for your own benefit.
mm.
It's one thing for someone to advise you and to mentor you and guide you through a change, but you want to read it for yourself so that you can see, do you understand? And at least when you're talking to someone about it, you have some questions that you can ask so that you can get a much more informed or response back and get clarity if there is an ambiguity in your thoughts.
Gotcha. You mentioned Apex. I know that was a name change.
Yes,
Talk a little bit about
Apex.
Apex real quick.
APEX is used to be the Procurement Technical Assistance Centers. So those are centers and organizations that are established to provide support to small businesses who are seeking opportunities to do business with the government. And so you go there and they have various services. Most of them are free. There are a few services that they may serve a nominal fee for, like I think for like bid matching. I think there may be a nominal fee that they do for that in certain regions and agencies. All depends on what their budget is. But it's a center that's designed and set up to service the small businesses and to support them in their journey and pursuing efforts for the federal government. But they are connected to other aspects of government. So various entities also provide, routine webinars and information briefings about the changes that are occurring in their respective organizations. So it's a great source of information for small businesses.